This podcast is being made on May 12th, and the stay-at-home order remains in effect until at least the end of May. As we slowly work our way through the pandemic, some days are better than others. Some days we are able to remain positive and believe that there is indeed light at the end of this very dark tunnel. Other days seem endless, as dark thoughts keep pushing us further back. It has become impossible almost to listen to a newscast without being reminded that nationwide unemployment is higher than it was during the Great Depression. And as infection rates continue to rise and vaccines remain elusive, it is very difficult on some days to not be anxious, sad, and afraid. It is easy to lose hope. It perplexes me that liquor stores and big box stores are considered essential services, but libraries are not. In my mind, public libraries are absolutely crucial during a crisis to offer accurate information, referrals for those who need help, solace for those who are alone and afraid, support and encouragement for everyone, and of course, reading material in all formats for all people. Some days, what we need more than anything else is hope, and books have the extraordinary power to replenish hope, offer encouragement and start us for another day, another week, another month. So today let's talk about books that gender hope. Writing at the height of the Great Depression, John Steinbeck was on fire as he wrote The Grapes of Wrath. The novel, 200,000 words on 165 cramped, handwritten pages in a 12-inch by 18-inch lined ledger book, was completed in just 5 months. He wrote at the rate of 2,000 words a day. And Steinbeck said his ambition was to rip a reader's nerves to rags from page to page. The novel at once became a national sensation, possibly the most reviewed and publicized and most controversial American novel of the 20th century. It was discussed on the radio, denounced by angry readers, and even banned in some libraries. First published in 1939, Steinbeck's Pulitzer Prize-winning epic of the Great Depression chronicles the Dust Bowl migration of the 1930s and tells the story of one Oklahoma farm family, the Joads, driven from their homestead and forced to travel west to the promised land of California. Out of their trials and their repeated collisions against the hard realities of an America divided into haves and have-nots during the Great Depression, comes a drama that is intensely human yet majestic in its scale and moral vision, elemental yet plain-spoken, tragic but ultimately stirring in its human dignity. And throughout the book, the novel offers hope. In the worst of times and the worst of circumstances, hope somehow survives. Early in the novel, after the drought and heat and dust have destroyed their crops, men stand looking at their fields. And this is how Steinbeck describes that scene. The women came out of the houses to stand beside their men, to feel whether this time the men would break. The women studied the men's faces secretly, for the corn could go as long as something else remained. The women realized that as long as there is hope, they can overcome this huge setback. If hope is lost, then they have lost everything. That theme is repeated again and again throughout the novel, and if you've never read The Grapes of Wrath, or it's been years since you did, read it again. It is emotionally difficult, but its themes of hope and perseverance are inspirational and beautifully written, necessary in days like these. It is not available through Hoopla, but it is available through Overdrive, another book e-service available at no charge through the Wooddale Public Library. As with Hoopla, just go to the home page of the library's website and you will find an entry to Overdrive. As with Hoopla, it is, as I said, entirely free. Another hope-inspiring title found on Overdrive is What the Eyes Don't See, a story of crisis, resistance, and hope in an American city by Mona Hanna-Attisha. With all of the intrigue of a Grisham thriller, this is a work of nonfiction, and it is the inspiring story of how Dr. Hanna-Attisha, alongside a team of researchers, parents, friends, and community leaders, discovered that the children of Flint, Michigan were being exposed to lead in their tap water, and then battled her own government and a brutal backlash to expose that truth to the world. Paced like a scientific thriller, What the Eyes Don't See reveals how misguided austerity policies, broken democracy, and callous bureaucratic indifference placed an entire city at risk. And at the center of the story is Dr. Mona herself, an immigrant, doctor, scientist, and mother whose family's activist roots inspired her pursuit of justice. This is a riveting, beautifully rendered account of a shameful disaster, the tale of hope, the story of a city on the ropes that came together to fight for justice, self-determination, and the right to build a better world. A fictional work that approaches hope from another direction is Wilder Girls by Rory Power. This is a young adult book that you will find on Overdrive. The novel is fresh and horrible and beautiful. As the story begins, it has been 18 months since the Raxter School for Girls was put under quarantine. Since the tox hit and pulled Hetty's life out from under her, it started slow. First, the teachers died one by one. Then it began to infect the students, turning their bodies strange and foreign. Now, cut off from the rest of the world and left to fend for themselves on their island home, the girls don't dare wander outside the schools. The tox has made the woods wild and dangerous. They wait for the cure they were promised as the tox seeps into everything. The characters in the novel do not find salvation in selflessness and kindness as you might expect. This is not a moralistic book for young adults. Instead, the hardships endured by the girls make them utterly dedicated to each other and to survival. The people who were supposed to protect them failed, and all they can do is try and save themselves. There is something deeply empowering about that, even if it's also troubling. When the institutions you trust fail you, what will you do? And how will you handle the consequences? It's okay to be afraid, and it's okay to fight back. Wilder Girls is a young adult book that adults will also find compelling. Hoopla offers another nonfiction title that shifts our focus from an epidemic not yet understood or under control to an epidemic that has been defeated. The book is called Smallpox by Adam Fergang. Of all the diseases that humans have suffered throughout history, the biggest killer by far has been smallpox. It's believed that as many as 500 million, that's billion with a B, people died from this disease in the 20th century alone. Today, the disease no longer exists as a threat to civilization. Modern medicine has helped to wipe this disease off the face of the earth. It only exists frozen in laboratories. It is no longer a threat to daily lives and the way we live. The road to eradication is a fascinating one, as it spread throughout the families, communities, and entire civilizations. It caused more deaths in the last 100 years than all the wars fought throughout that period combined. The disease knew no economic, political, geographic, or social boundaries. It touched the lives of the rich and the poor, kings and peasants, chauffeured presidents and ordinary pedestrians. This is the heartbreaking, tragic, but ultimately triumphant story of the disease's rise, spread, and eventual eradication. Even more compelling is this book's account of how society was shaped by the dread disease and the course of civilization permanently altered. Life was never to be the same. All of the above sounds so familiar, and it renews hope that the day will come, and come soon, when someone will write a book detailing the eradication of the coronavirus. And there's one more book I would like to share, and it's called Best Friends by Samantha Glenn. It is available through Hoopla. As I said earlier, there are good days and there are bad days, and I know from personal experience that the bad days can be made better through the love of a pet. Best Friends is the inspiring true story of the Best Friends no-kill animal sanctuary in Angel Canyon, Utah. In the summer of 1982, a group of young men and women pooled every penny they had and bought 3,000 acres of desert in Utah. It was to become the most famous no-kill animal sanctuary in the world, a haven for over 2,000 furry and feathered friends, including Sinja, the badly burned black cat who survived to welcome others home. Victor, the abandoned Australian Shepherd mix who became the godfather of all the other dogs. Sparkles, the broken-down pack horse who comforts humans and animals. And then there's Tyson and Tommy, two tiny black kittens who have something to teach us all. As millions of Americans are struggling to cope with a broken economy, more and more pets must be given up for adoption. The pandemic brings with it feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. Yet here is something you can do to make things better, not only for the animal you adopt, but also for yourself. In these difficult days, to rescue an animal may very well be the best way to rescue yourself. So let's finish today with a lighter, yet still hope-inspiring novel from Hoopla that has a title that you might assume it's a piece of fluff that might be a pleasant read, but without serious themes or literary merit. And you would be wrong. The book is The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. That's right. The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. Set on the island of Guernsey during the World War II German occupation, this story about an underground book club is an absolute delight. Written as a series of letters between a writer in London and a Guernsey resident, this is a great read about the power of literature in dark times and how human connection is vital and possible even when we're physically isolated. Occupied by the Germans between 1940 and 1945, the Channel Islands were the only part of the British Isles to have been seized by the Nazi regime. For 5 years, the residents lived in existence that wasn't completely free. They couldn't speak freely, they were living under curfew, and they were often struggling for food. Before the war, the island had been massively reliant on importing and exporting with the mainland. They managed to do some trading with France. The Germans actually allowed that. But after D-Day, eventually they were cut off and began to starve. And toward the end of the war, the question wasn't whether the Allies would win, but whether they would die of starvation before the island could be liberated. Filled with quirky, memorable characters, the novel is a poignant, funny, gentle read, perfect for one of those days when hope is just a little bit out of reach. Thanks for listening.